Now there's no turning back. I know that we'll face whatever may come our way, 'cause tomorrow's a new day. These simple days may pass me by, but with your hand I know that we can fly, guiding me through an open door. We can soar with you, there's no hesitation, only feelings that whisper inside my heart, telling me this is the place to start. Of all the times I may stumble and fall again, I know that I'm not alone in the end. I'm finally taking a path that will guide me straight ahead. Now there's no turning back. Just let those empties fade into black and fall into a new day. Please promise me won't let it slip away, and no, I'll be there. We'll take the leap and not have it care today. Will be the day. I'll never let these feelings slip away.
Oh boy, oh boy. Oh, what a mess. Hello, anybody who's happening to watch this. Alright, how's it going, guys, whoever's here, if anyone's here. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna be here live yet, because, So, if you're watching this in post, which I'm sure you are, I just had a goof where I completely messed up my timings. It was a nightmare, but it's all okay. It's all good. Hello and welcome. I'm happy to be here. Alright, so, this is just a bit different. I try to do something a little differently. I'm streaming this normally during the day. Normally I have to do these at night, but today I was able to work things out because this evening I have stuff that's going on, and today I don't have anything that's actually happening, so hello and welcome. And I'm also doing the webcam thing. I want to do this more often in the future, but just wanted to say hi. I'm keeping an eye on the chat box just in case anyone joins in, but I just wanted to say welcome to the rap party. So, what is this exactly, in case you haven't heard about it? So this is what I call the rap party. It's where we go when a series is finished and I say like, okay, it's time for us to just kind of say goodbye to it, but it's a time for me to also be able to wrap up and talk about things, because one of the most important things about the channel is I want to make sure that I don't cover or feature every single part of a visual novel on here, especially when it has branching narratives and different like options. I don't want to take away the opportunity that you have to be able to experience some things for yourself, because frankly I'm already kind of like walking the line when it comes to like sharing such narrative based content on the channel, but a lot of this is obviously done with permissions and stuff. In fact, if there's ever a series on the channel that you're always like, hey, wish you could play this game or whatever, why haven't you played this game, I almost can guarantee you that if it's like a big title that like you think I would already be wanting to play, most likely it's because I'm struggling to get permission to play it, and I want to make sure that I do things properly. Purple OG Gamer, thank you for joining. It's good to see you. I'm sorry I'm so late, but that's how it goes. Like, if I'm honest, like it was mostly lack of sleep combined with just like an odd schedule. But thank you for being here, man. Look, glad to have you around. So, anyway, like I said, long story short, I'm very excited to be able to cover this. PixelFade has always been very, very like giving and very, very grateful for anything that supports their content and kind of shares it. So I'm very happy to be able to do so and be able to kind of, you know, give kind of analyze it. I also got to do the rest of the playthroughs. There's the second, this is the Erilynn branch, which I did cover, and there was a secret branch. Somebody hinted at it. I kind of figured there would be something, but I was able to find it, and so I'm going to talk about that as well. And mostly just kind of like, what do I think about this game in every respect? So if you have any questions or any comments while doing it live, anyone who is watching, I'd love to hear it, but otherwise I'm just kind of going to jump right in. So we're going to go ahead and start and kind of get the obvious out of the way with the Kira ending. Kira, obviously, as you can see at the slideshow, most of my pictures and screen captures are going to be of her because she was kind of the premiere. And having played all the endings, I actually still think I liked Kira's the best. I think what it came down to, like, development of a relationship, I think hers was depicted the best because Kira needed to have a lot of character growth, something that we got to see along her way, where she kind of had to explore a lot about who she was and also like what she wanted in life. Because when we first met her, she kind of was living a life that was effectively dictated by her circumstances, by her lifestyle choices, and like she was just kind of going through the motions. She was going to school, trying to figure out what she wanted, and struggling with her like relationship with her family. When she joins with your friends, she kind of is able to open up a bit, especially when you interact with her as the main character. I noticed on second and third playthroughs, when you don't spend time with Kira, you don't really see any growth from her, even in her narrative, which was shocking to me, but I thought made a lot of sense. Sometimes in a branching narrative like this, when you get to the end of the story, everyone just kind of ends up in the same place they would have anyway, but that's actually not the case with Kira. When we watched on my playthrough, if you are like get into a relationship with Kira, like she stays around, she ends up starting a a writing career, a successful one at that, which is really fun and great to see, especially for someone like me who's always like entertained the idea of like wanting to do writing and stuff. So it's like, man, it makes you want to be like, oh, I could just see myself like living that life and doing that. But with her, it was just really fun to see that growth. However, I found that when you do the other endings, she just is like kind of friendly with everybody, and then she ends up transferring to a different school where she shares like some of her sketches, but like she doesn't end up becoming like an author or publishing anything. She just kind of continues on, keeps touch with like everybody, but she just kind of moves on with life. And it was really interesting to me to see that like her story dramatically changes from part to part, depending on like if you dated her or not, which I thought was really cool. Again, it showed a level of understanding of character growth on the side of the writer. So again, whoever was writing this script, I can tell like they've definitely gotten better. If they wrote Ace Academy and Erilynn, which I don't know, I'm guessing that like at least similar members are on the team, because like you can kind of feel a lot of similar like writing tendencies and styles carry on through Ace Academy, Erilynn, and now Ethereal Enigma. But I also think they've learned, because I feel like the quality of the writing for the character development side of things was actually probably the best I've seen in any PixelFade game. I don't think it was that way in every situation. Yeah, I'm adjusting the camera a bit, because there were some things that I think, well, will never change, and I'm not entirely convinced that it was like the best it could be. I think the title for the stream kind of sets it perfectly. One step back, 3 steps forward. Because whilst a lot of progress was made with this story, I will kind of get to it in the long term, but I think that there are still things that made PixelFade's first like breakout hit of Ace Academy so great that are still missing from their current games. But I have some guesses as to why that is, and I'll get to that at the very end of everything. But anyway, so continuing with the Kira route and what my thoughts on her route were, I overall think that her character development is just fantastic to watch and be a part of. I think a lot of the decisions that she makes are really well in line with like who she is as a character, and the growth that we see from her is very logical. You see her like overcoming her fear, overcoming her self-doubt about her place and what she wants to do. She's never had she's not the kind of person who has a lot of self-doubt in a lot of similar ways, like being like she's not shy. She's quiet, but she's not shy. And I think that was good that they made sure to strike that line where Kira was never like, she never came off as shy, even though people interpreted her actions as shy. Like you could see if you really looked that she wasn't. And I think that's good because it shows consistency. Again, with that writing being so crucial, just so on point with that kind of stuff. I love the music, by the way. So while all was said and done, I also thought that the romance itself with Kira was really good. In fact, out of the routes that are available, hers was the best, because even the romance kind of grew, where it didn't start out feeling like, oh yeah, like we like each other and we're like being all flirty wordy with each other. It's like it really started out being like we're friends and we're supporting each other, and like she's kind of growing and we're growing as characters together. And then it slowly kind of tiptoes its way into this very natural feeling like romance, which is just really fun to see. And I think, again, it's so relatable to what my experiences were with like dating and relationships. So maybe it's just me, but that whole just experience, and whoever like was spearheading that, the narrative of the relationship between the MC, Protag in my case, and Kira, I think they really have a good grasp of like what romance looks like, but also still capturing that fanciful, like idealistic viewpoint that a visual novel often delivers on. Because again, we like to kind of like, a lot of these types of games are escapism, and so obviously there's going to be a lot of like fun, tropey, goofy interactions and stuff. But ultimately, what made it special, what made it like wonderful, was there. I'm gonna make sure that this audio is okay. Good, the audio's up too loud. So 9 times out of 10, I say that Kira is still going to be like the best track. Also, just because she's, as a character, just really impactful to me. I think she's definitely like, again, I really put myself into these stories. Like, part of the reason why I think I can react so well, why I get so opinionated about it, is because I really am self-insertive. I don't even need it to be like a super self-insertive MC, but like main character. But I do enjoy it when that happens, like in this. But I feel like I get the chance to bond with these characters in a way, like imagining if they were real, like if I were actually in this place, like a high school student with them. And I definitely think that I could see something special about Kira, and like wanting to be able to get to know her if she were a person that I could like meet. She's definitely got that weirdly authentic feel, and so very good about that. And so again, it makes the relationship very much come alive, and made me want to just clutch my cheeks and squeal in happiness when things happened and stuff. It was just really well done. And then the fan servicey stuff got a little interesting, but I still thought it was pretty cute. The magical girl outfit was pretty top notch, I gotta say. And just like, also just the fulfillment too of like a lot of romance stories, and Crystalline and Ace Academy actually fell into this trap where you get the romance and it kind of just ends the story there. But I think the best stories show a little bit, at least, of like what it's like being in that relationship, and like kind of continuing the like continuing on. And so with Kira, I really liked how, well, it also happened with the other character, with gosh, like I just said her name and now I'm blanking, because like, of course, this is what happens when I'm recording and I'm live. I can't think of anything. Oh, come on, I'm gonna be talking about her in just a second. I feel like an idiot because it's like I have to look it up, and she's right there on the screen too. Don't mock me. I don't know what I'm doing. But with everyone else, like, you get this feeling of like of real like you get a connection with them. And so when you have your relationship and it gets to like, oh, like we're like a couple now, like you get to explore the whole like, what's it like being a brand new couple, what's it like transitioning from like flirting to actually dating. And I think that's a really important step to show, because especially for people who maybe are playing games like this who aren't very experienced yet in romance, like, you can learn things from these games. I don't think you should ever use a visual novel as a template for a relationship. Please don't do that. But any good story, like one of my favorite sayings is that like writers use lies to tell the truth. And I think that's the case, that a really good writing in a story, even if it's all fake and like is impossible to be real, the humanity that's in there and the way that stories are told should be and is often approachable for somebody to be able to understand and learn and glean kind of like feelings and stuff. So like you get this really cool like combination and experience with like seeing that growth and development with characters. Let's see, I guess if I were to say, like, what were my highlights, like, specifically, like, the moments that really struck out for Kira's, like, story arc, I really enjoyed the whole story about, like, her finding and kind of rescuing the stray cat, and, like, the interactions that you had with that whole process of, like, trying to find the owner, but then getting used to, like, living at her place, and then best furry wingman, like, how he helped you, like, get a good seat on the couch, so it was just cute and fun. I also really liked her family kind of resolution, which wasn't a resolution. It didn't just magically fix, you know? Like, there wasn't just some, like, oh, it's just all perfect and it's all good now. It's like, she still had to deal with, like, the frustration that was dealing with her family not being there, and, like, her worry about needing to, like want to make sure that her brother's gonna be okay. And so, like, knowing that it's, like, accounted for, and, like, it just there's no sort of band-aid that slapped on it and just said, oh, it's all good now. It's like, it's something she has to keep working on, but that she has a lot more, like, hope toward, is really, really cool. And it really impacted me. Just, I think it impacts everybody, but family in general is always important, and so, like, it definitely left a big impression. So overall, Kira was, in my opinion, best girl of the entire series, and I'm really glad I kind of went down her track when I did my playthrough, because it was something I looked forward to coming back to. And, like, it's one thing to feel like, oh, like, I really am interested in this character. It's another to, like, have that follow through the entire time, or to not feel, like, disappointed at some exchange, or maybe at a delivery of, like, the way it is. And that's kind of what happens on the Erilynn route, which is what I want to talk about next. So, but, like, push comes to shove, Kira did great. Props to the voice actor who did her lines. They were very well delivered, very, very good. I doubt any of them will see this, but I still want to say thank you so much. The experience was fantastic. I hope you had a lot of fun with the role, and I hope to see you in other projects as well. So now we're going to jump to the Erilynn storyline. Now, Erilynn's was really interesting because Erilynn is kind of the poster girl for the series, and it makes sense that her, like, relationship narrative would be, I don't know. I'm guessing she's the canon ending, technically, you know? Like, there's a little bit of extra attention that seemed to have gone into her story, but not to the point where it was super noticeable or egregious, which is something I think PixelFade's nailed really well. A lot of other visual novels definitely kind of make it feel like they have, like, a main girl, and then they have, like, side characters that you can, like, romance, but, like, there's very clearly, like, a single, like, character whom the writer was very much, like, invested in. You can kind of feel. And I think PixelFade's always been very good about making it so that when you have options of dating, they are balanced in that regard. And I do think that as well. Like, while Erilynn has a bit of that, like, main character vibe to her story, I didn't feel like it was at all, like, overshadowing the story arc that you saw with Kira. As a matter of fact, I think Kira outshone her in a lot of ways. Erilynn's growth seems fairly independent of the main character. The growth that she experiences, she's already a fairly, like, competent character, a very competent person. Her growth stems primarily from her ability to kind of, like, recognize, like, first of all, like, how to take care of herself, and secondly, to start thinking from other people's perspectives, like, in ways that she never had before. And it seems like when you go down, like, the Kira route, for instance, she still learns those same lessons, just independent of you. You don't really get to see it as much, except in her actions, where she at first is like, she can't feed herself, and she doesn't know, like, how to make a sandwich. She eventually grows into, like, being able to go, like, to make money and go shopping and buying stuff on her own, and, like, packing her own food and all that stuff. Like you see her, like, grow in the ways that we in skills that we take for granted, but for somebody who has been trained or politics and had every all like the mundane taken care of for her is fairly real. In fact, I'm guessing that it is not a uncommon thing for people who grow up in a very prominent family, like with a lot of like monetary assets, to actually experience what it's like to not really know how to do like the basic functions of life. Maybe not to that extent. I think it was probably carried kind of far for the sake of like telling the story, but I don't think that that's as alien as some of us might think it is. There are people, I think, who struggle learning those skills because they just never get taught them for whatever reason. Let's see. So, what did Erilynn's story makes her stick out? I think one of the biggest things is that dating her is completely different than dating Kira. With Kira, it's very much an experimentation. Like, each of you kind of have this kind of flirting dance that's going along. And again, like I said, that's very reminiscent of what my dating experiences have been like. However, Erilynn's has a completely different tone. There is a little bit of back and forth flirting, but she's also very much about, like, she loves getting compliments. She loves receiving direct attention. Kira actually wasn't as big of a fan of that kind of stuff, but Erilynn really kind of enjoys, and kind of her writing often is and her dialogue is promoting this sense of like, I'm wonderful and I think you need to acknowledge that kind of attitude. And it's in line with her character, but because it's also not obnoxious or like, oh, look how awesome I am. No. It's more of like, I know I'm great, but I enjoy hearing that I'm great. And like, it just matched her character from day one. And like I said, even though she did have growth, she still maintained the same person, because even at the beginning, it's not like she was a bad person or wasn't generous. Like, she always was a generous person. She was always kind. She didn't start off like as a crazy, like, snooty, like mean-spirited individual and become nice. She was always nice. She just saw herself so much higher than everyone else. It came across very like haughty, and she kind of humbled over time, but it didn't like change that at all. Like her personality maintained its core. Again, the writing is a lot better here, because a lot of times writers will lean on this whole narrative of like people starting off one way and then morphing into this ideal, rather than being themselves and then becoming a better refined version of themselves, which is really what's more human anyway. Like Erilynn wanting to run for class like representative, that makes sense. She was born and raised to become a leader, so she would naturally find her skills like drawn towards that, because that's an aspect of her life that she not only like embraced but enjoyed. So you get this whole narrative with her like kind of growing in that regard of like, just because the scope changed didn't change how much she cared about the responsibility, and like how much she paid attention to the words people would say. She would notice things about people and like remember them and then apply them. She understood how to like speak to people in ways that made sense, but without being too fluffy and like being too grandiose and such. Like, it was just such a real character arc for her. Like, my biggest complaint is that she doesn't really have much growth to make. Like I said, when the biggest growth is that she can now make herself a sandwich, like, it's not really like saying a whole lot's changed about her, but that's okay. Like, this is also a very short time period. It makes sense that people don't just dramatically change. Kira's story makes sense because of the change that is necessitated by having friends, like when you haven't had them. But for Erilynn, like, it makes sense that she doesn't change as much, but it made it a little less impactful because of it. One thing I did appreciate too, though, was like how she approached dating differently. She was very flirty, but she also wasn't very shy about her feelings. And in fact, when it comes to the confession, which comes much earlier than with Kira, like the confession and the like starting of your dating relationship happens earlier time-wise. Like, not grotesquely per se, it was technically in the same chapter, but with Kira, it like happens and then the next day you tell your friends. With Erilynn, like, you technically like become a couple, but then you have several events that happen in between, and then you like admit it. And it's fun because that whole conversation is actually one of the biggest like sections that I want to highlight in the differences here that I thought was really good with the writing. Is the confessing of your relationship status with your friends. Because with Kira, it's like you just ended up sitting down next to each other and like are just naturally very close, and like you're like Kosei kind of like pokes fun at you and you're like, oh well, I guess we should just say we've technically started dating, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. Like they're like kind of surprised because like it's not like you're being very overt, but like it's kind of like this whole like, oh, I guess should we tell them? And Kira's like, yeah, we should probably tell them. But like it's more of like it didn't occur to them, like to Kira and the main character, to like, oh, they might actually want to know about this because it's like so new to them too. There's like, oh, okay, I guess this is just the thing now. And then with Erilynn, like you sit down in the group and she like sits down like practically in your lap and like clasps your hand, and they're like, well, that's a little new, what's going on? And then no, don't say what's going on. They're like, wait a minute, are you two dating? And then she's like, yes! She's like so excited. She's like, it's like, it comes across like she was just dying to say something, but like was holding back maybe to be courteous, like to wait for a proper time or whatever. But it was just fun to see like that difference of like the approach. And like Erin is very much more, she's very forward. Like when she confesses, she kind of confesses to you, which is with Kira, it's like you are kind of having a mutual confession with her, but like you kind of initiate it. Erilynn really like, she like decides like, all right, I'm gonna make this a thing now, and that's so in line with her character too, which I do love. I love that they the relationship tracks are unique because it shows again that the writer wasn't just writing to write a story, which often becomes this kind of like they end up writing the same story but slightly differently. This time it felt like they really were writing from the perspective of like, okay, who is Erilynn and how would she get into a relationship versus who is Kira and how would she get into a relationship. So it was very, very nice to see that, and I think it was just well done. Again, it's a personality thing for me because I do like directness, but Erilynn, for me, was a bit too much. Like, she could be a very overbearing personality. And but she's a fantastic character, and I definitely really enjoyed, like, her whole story arc. Again, if I were saying which was my favorite for well-written and for just character in general, I have to go back to Kira. Because, again, Kira was also direct in her own way, but like Kira's very subtle as well, which I appreciate personally. And then Erilynn is very much in your face. But the thing is, like, that's perfectly fine. I guarantee you there's a lot of people who would very much be preferring Erilynn's style, but it's just not my personal vibe. Danny, you say, yeah, you felt Erilynn was too perfect. She never was made to look bad. Like, sure, she had some misunderstandings, but she never really failed at anything. Yeah, exactly. I think that could have been explored better. But I also think that a lot of that had to do with like just who she was and like the stuff that she'd already had to learn. Like if you think about her life beforehand being part of royalty, she probably had a lot of her faults already like kind of forced out of her by like tutoring and like like constant like lessons and teaching. It would have been more fun to explore some of her personal faults. Like, I think Erilynn could have done with an arc where she were truly vulnerable. That's what I think was really missing from Erilynn's story, was that there were really no points where she was overwhelmed, where she was out of her depth, where she got so frustrated or scared or upset that she kind of like let her guard down. Like obviously she experiences all those things, but they never were like, she never hits a break point. And that's something that Kira actually does hit. She hits a couple break points. Like there's a point where she's like expressing her frustration with her family, and it's like you're sitting there like, what would you even say when you're talking to someone who you care about and she's like emotionally like, I struggle so much with trying to just like know how I should handle my family because I want them to be in my life and I care about them, but they just aren't, and I don't know what to do. It's like what do you say to that? You can't. And like instead it was about like, well, you got to do the best you can, but I'm here for you and I know that you're gonna be okay, and like helping her realize that. Erilynn never has a moment of vulnerability like that. Not really. Not truly. The most vulnerable she really gets is just her being able to, like, admit that she doesn't know everything. That's not really a character growth. So, yeah. She was a little too perfect. That's a great way to put it, Danny. Thank you for that. But I still thought she was great fun to explore with the character. I definitely didn't find myself struggling through the romance and struggling through the narrative with her. It was definitely enjoyable. I did think that it was fun to see her in her ending, like, because with Kira's ending, like, Erilynn kind of just sends a box of sweets and says, like, hey, thinking about you, but I'm busy. With the Erilynn ending, like, in a few months, she actually just comes back. And it's implied that she just kind of said, screw it, I'm just going to stay here with you now. Which is like, oh, so you're just not going to be royalty anymore? That seems a little ridiculous. I thought a better ending, personally, would be that the main character gets to go to Veldin with her. And, like has an opportunity to see, like, if he might want to go there someday, like, for long term. Danny continues to say, excellent at the baking job, maid service, gear modeling, bowling, student council, being good with all the pets. Talking about Erilynn being good at everything. Even one that no one was able to connect with, she's able to connect with easily. Then there's the thing that makes her extraordinary, such as giving her uncle the perfect cooking advice to improve his types of food. That's, yeah. She's definitely, that was definitely a whole, like, again, that one, it kind of makes sense if she's got a specific palette and stuff. But yeah, especially when you put it all together like that, you're definitely, like, it's making it even worse than I was saying it was. And then you say, and you continue, an expert on flower arrangement, expert on museum art, and mathematician, status genius. The 10 things I was able to list when she's so phenomenal at, she excels at her first try. Yep. She's got a bit of that Mary Sue about her. At least they went to the effort, though, of explaining a lot of it. Like, in Veldin, like, they have much more of advanced mathematics. Kind of like how what we consider, like, high school level math was, like, advanced math, like, 100 years ago. And they kind of take that other extreme where, like, in Veldin, it continues with that. So at least that kind of makes sense. But I like her, so I'm not trying and then Danny continues, like, I like her, I'm not trying to bash her too much, but yeah, it's hard to find faults with her. Exactly. I think it makes it harder to appreciate her character. I think she could have nailed it out of the park if we'd actually been able to see vulnerabilities with her and help her, like, see her grow. Because that's such a human thing. And it makes Erilynn feel almost inhuman because she's so good at everything that she does. And it doesn't help that she's so, like, dependent on you at the beginning when it comes to, like, the really basic stuff. It makes her feel almost like a dream person, like somebody out of a dream stepping into your world, which you gotta say, though, like, maybe that was the whole point. Maybe the whole point was, like, she's like an otherworldly person with skills and capabilities beyond what you'd expect. So what would it be like if she were isekai'd here? It's like, okay, I get it, but I think it could have been done better. So Kira's story was a lot more enjoyable because of that, like, human element. And so I think there could have been improvement, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't like she's a bad character. For the character that they went for and for how skilled she was, it was really well done, how approachable she still was by the end of the story, and how her relationship with the main character does feel pretty, like, grounded in reality. Like I could see that type of relationship being real, and so I 100% agree that, like, there's not a lot of fault there, but I think it could have been done better. And yes, at least we taught her how to make a sandwich. All right, so that's the big stuff. Oh yeah, so, like, now we gotta talk about Mina a little bit. So I knew going in that there was a secret and, like, a secret relationship, and I knew that Mina being your cousin was that she was your cousin. I assumed that there would be some kind of weird, like, romance option with Mina, and especially when I went on that, like, random thing where, like, you go to the fortune teller who says you're not blood related, I started thinking, like, oh gosh, are they actually gonna, like, make that a thing? So I made it a challenge on my third playthrough, because I was like, I'm gonna find the secret ending, because I was convinced it was a Mina ending, because it reminded me a lot in Ace Academy how like, you had Sho and you had Miyu, or was it Miyu or Mayu? Mayu, that's it, Mayu. they kind of like have their like pseudo like relationship and they become a couple unless you start like showing interest in Mayu. And you have to be careful with the Mayu route because you can't be too eager. You have to be supportive of her and then start flirting with her for it to work, which I thought was really clever in Ace Academy. Again, Ace Academy has some pretty sparkling moments for sure that still like overshadow everything else I've played of Ace Academy, of PixelFades. But like the whole idea there was like they were kind of like being written together as a couple unless you intervened, and then show ended up with somebody else. But like it was this whole idea of like just because they like Mina and Kosei end up together, I thought like, well, what if it's like Ace and like you kind of can step in and things work out with you and Mina and Kosei goes somewhere else. But that's not the case at all. It never becomes a thing. The whole like not blood related thing like never has no fruition. I think it was more of like so it essentially comes across as a red herring, but I wonder if originally they thought about making her a route and then decided against it because the message might be a little too like off taste, I could say. Like it, you know, like it gets too close to the whole like, oh, stepsister, stepbrother, we're not blood related, so it's okay. And like there's a lot of like to that, you know, like maybe it's a fetish for people, maybe it's like, you know, it's like technically not wrong, but like when you have to put quotations around something, like maybe that's not the tone you're going for in your like sweet like high school dating romance story. So yeah, maybe originally she would have been an actual dating route, but they kind of pulled that back. I could see that being the case. I did really enjoy, though, there was a lot of love and care into the scenes with her, because in my attempt to end up to see if there was a Mina route, I spent as much time as I could with Mina in every opportunity, which it is kind of heartbreaking to see the game desperately try to make you choose between Erilynn and Kira. And to have you, and it kind of like, it tentatively keeps trying to offer you their romance paths until pretty far into the game. In fact, like, you are forced at one point to pick either spending time with Erilynn or Kira, and it kind of determines when you go to camp who jumps into your arms during the scary story bit. But you can still kind of like, so it was very strange because like in that playthrough, I kind of just went through the Erilynn route out of whim. And so, like, she jumps behind you, like, save me, and then the bottom response is to kind of, like, say, like, what the heck? Leave me alone. And she just pushes you. But, like, it felt so, like, it felt very, like, obtuse. Like, it almost felt like the game was, like, I guess you could just ignore the fact that she jumped behind you and, like, was being kind of flirty with you. Like, it kind of just shoves you, like, like she shoves the main character. It's almost like the story's just like, oh, fine, you don't get anybody. Danny, you say, there were some people who wander out with Mina, but nah, PixelFade never thinks about implementing family member routes. Yeah, I mean, that's probably a good thing. Like, even if it's, like, technically okay, like, if you make it technically okay, it's kind of like when you have, like the characters, like, okay, I just dropped my notes. But, okay. It's a whole lolly debate. So, here's my thinking on that. There are people who look a lot younger than they are. There are women who look young, and, like, that's just a thing. I mean, like, it's not bad or weird when that happens. The trouble is, especially in the anime scene and the H anime stuff, that, and anime in general though, they use the excuse that there are young looking adults to hyper youth characters, and whilst it's possible, the reason they do it is to fulfill, like, ultimately, like, a fetish. And I think that's probably, like, what PixelFade wants to avoid. Is that just because you technically make it okay doesn't mean that it's not appealing to a potentially unhealthy like fetish or unhealthy desire, and they might just be wanting to avoid that. Because frankly, it's up to you as a writer, as a consumer. What you do with your time is up to you. But if as a writer you're not comfortable potentially like showing support for something like that, then yeah, like I understand why you'd want to avoid that, and I 100% support that idea. It probably frustrates some people, and it really when push comes to shove, would that be a deal breaker for me? Would that make me think, oh, it's a terrible game, these writers are so skeevy? No, not at all. I just think that when you have a line and you aren't comfortable crossing it, you should never cross it, because that's up to you. You don't have to appeal to every fetish. You don't have to check the boxes. And I think that's one of the flaws I see a lot in anime, is that like especially if it's a harem-esque anime or a wish fulfillment story, they tend to just have like romance part options that check all the different boxes. Like you got the tsundere, the kudere, the dere. Like you get all you can check off the boxes in every single case. You got like the busty girl, the flat girl, the lolly-ish girl. I find that to be very boring. I find that to be very lazy when it comes to writing. So I'm kind of glad that they didn't do that, simply because it means that they stuck to what they wanted, even if their fans were a little annoyed by it. And so thank you for that. But the way it implied it does make it feel like it was something they considered. Because remember, they released this in chapters. So maybe during chapters 1 and 2, they were deciding whether or not they were going to have a Mina secret route, but then they chose against it. Now, the real secret route, I have to get the name because it's very hard. It's hard to like... Where was it? Oh, it was Kosei. Like, you spend time with Kosei and with... gosh darn it, I'm not going to be able to find this, but like... When I was trying to do the Mina route, I found the secret route by accident, because when you do stuff with Mina, and especially with Kosei, you end up going to Kosei's side, like spending time with Kosei at his house, and it turns out he has a little sister I never ever met on my playthrough, and like, so I'm trying to find her name, because like it's something I didn't pay much attention to at first. It's like, I wish it was just listed here, but like, it's a little sister, and she comes off at first like a psychopath. Like, she's very blatantly has a huge crush on you. Apparently, she would hang out with you, Risa. Thank you, Danny. I'm so sorry I couldn't think of it. So Risa was a close friend of yours and Kosei's in like junior high. But she's a year younger than you, and so when you jump into high school, she doesn't quite follow, so you don't see her as much. So Risa has a huge crush on you, and apparently like that crush bloomed when like you left, and she kind of realized like when you weren't going to school with her. And so like when she comes to the house, she finds excuses to come by the house, and when she sees you, she's very very like, she does the whole thing. Actually, the first time the first thing I saw her is like I went to Kosei's, and like she pops into the room all of a sudden, like dressed in like sweats and a baggy t-shirt, and her hair's all like kind of like done up, but kind of like just loosely. She just pops in, she's like, "Hey brother, what's going on?" And she sees you, and she's like, "Ah!" And she runs off, and then she comes back, like her hair is like done out and brushed out. She's all dressed up. She put on her makeup. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was pretty cute, because I could totally see that happening. And then like after that, she kind of very heavily, not subtly at all, very much like Kosei, being terrible at like social cues. Risa like interested in you and like would love to spend time with you. She even goes like way overboard and kind of like does this whole like, well, oh no, like what if it's just you and me? There's nobody else around. Anything could happen. Like it had a very like, I'm so vulnerable and breedable kind of vibe. I was like, okay, that's a little weird. But then it's funny because like I started seeing, I was like, like it gets to the point where like I kind of was just dismissing it because I was like I still thought it was a Mina route, and then like there was just a scene where she popped in, and it was just her, and like the two of us were sitting there, and she kind of pseudo confesses to you a bit. She's just like, "Hey, I really missed you, and like I really like spending time with you," and like you get this option where you're just like, "Yeah, you're a great friend," or you'd be like, "Huh, like." What if she were more? Like you kind of had this like realization of like, wait a minute, what if we went a different direction with this? And like you click that, and that's what launches you into that secret path with Risa. And it's funny because like you kind of imply like, well, we could be more, and she suddenly like freezes, where she's like, because at first she's being super overt with her flirtiness, but then she's like, oh my gosh, like. You might actually consider that, and then she kind of retreats, and she kind of like becomes shy and becomes more like, I don't know what to do here, but I'm really happy. And like that really opened up for me. I was like, oh my gosh, like that was actually really cool. Like it felt very like human all of a sudden, where she was overtly flirty, but that was because like she never sees you. And I was like, that makes so much sense. She's like, she really likes you, she's got this huge crush on you as a character. And so, but she hardly ever sees you anymore. And then when she does see you, she gets over flustered and she gets overworked up about it. And so she's threw herself at you, but it's almost out of a desperation, but it's a desperation that makes sense. It's not because she's a desperate individual. It's because she doesn't see you very much. And she's like, wants to make that connection with you still. But then when you do, she becomes a lot more shy, and she's just like, okay, let's get together, and then you're like, yeah, let's do that. And so you kind of plan an outing, and you have this like really awkward, very real feeling like first date, where you like are spending time and you're like trying to explore like, well, this is new, we like stuff, and you like stuff, and we're here, what do we do? And it was just adorable. Like it was very, very real. It went from like super cringy to 100% real. Like, in many ways more real than what it felt like with Kira. And it was really fun to see. Danny, you continue. Yep, I found it kind of cute and sweet. It's basically like the one that got away trope from her, since she didn't know what she had until the MC left from the same school. Absolutely. And like, I mean, I don't know if you've been there. I've been there. I know what that was like. And it was just like, holy cow. This idea of like maybe something can happen, and then like you don't get a ton of scenes with her. It's like you do all the adventures still with Erilynn and Kira and Mina, but then like you have like texting sessions with Risa, and like you get together, and your relationship doesn't really kick off until like near the end, but it becomes official. And like it's a really cute scene when Kosei like catches you, because like Mina, like Risa invites you over because Kosei is going out with Mina, and so they're out of the house, and so it's just Risa, and she's like, hey, you should come over. And it's kind of like where like you have your first like kind of like more like intimate moment, where like you're about to kiss, and then Kosei bursts into the room because he wants to like, and he brings like Mina there because he's like, oh, there's nobody home, let's go home and like hang out, you know, whatever hanging out was gonna be. But he catches you, and you have this really amazing moment where like Risa's like, you're such a, like, why are you here? And then he's like, wait, why are you here? And then like he realizes, he finally, because Kosei's he's as thick as molasses, he finally puts all the pieces together, and he's like, wait, you two are a thing? And he's like, whoa. And he's like, that's pretty awesome. And he goes really happy for you. So like, it was very sweet and fun. And then I have to say, like, Risa's kind of, she just has a sprite for like the entire game. She's just like a little head when she speaks. And then like, that's it. And at the very end, you get a secret like CG with you two at the park together. And I have to say, I think when it comes to character design, like Kira's character design, like her look, is really high up there. Risa's like right there. I only get one scene with her, but like just her character design is it's just fantastic. She just looks really like she's just an adorable character. The way she's written is like, it's very like hot cold, and like I said, she's real cringy at first, but if you get past that, I think her character was well done. I really wish they could have like done a more full route with her, but again, it was a bonus route, so obviously it makes sense. But I definitely think I was a big fan of that. So if I have to put the relationships in the tier list, it goes Kira, followed very closely by Risa, and then Erilynn down here. But like Kira probably only wins because we get so much more time and development with her. Risa doesn't have a chance to grow as a character really, which would have been amazing to watch if we could have. It's just so good because like it's amazing that a character that was effectively like almost felt like a side note until the very end was able to develop so well and to like catch my eye so much. And so that was again another testament to the writing, where like a seemingly inconsequential character was able to actually capture me pretty well. So yeah, it was very, very fun to be able to go down the Risa route. And thank you, Danny, for reminding me of her name. I'm exceptionally tired, and so I apologize for that. But and then I guess with the rest of it, like I don't know if there's really anything else to it. It's just like the story's great. The thing that makes PixelFade games so good is that every episode, every time you sit down and you play the game, you're gonna have a good time. Like, is it always smiles? No. Sometimes it's very dramatic. I think Ace Academy got very serious a lot of the time, but it was still enjoyable. And Crystalline and Ethereal Enigma, like, I walked away from every episode of that practically grinning my face off, especially Ethereal Enigma. I think Ethereal Enigma, I walked away every recording with just a big grin on my face. Crystalline had like one episode where you are fighting with oh gosh, oh come on, I keep wanting to say like the voice actor's name. No, gosh darn it, I'm so bad with names today. But you like when you fight with her, that like it hurt when you fight in there. And Ace Academy, when you like start like learning about like the fact that your parents were like murdered, that got freaking dark. But then like Ethereal Enigma, like it was pretty much good. The darkest moments was in Kira's storyline when you're talking about like her family situation, and that wasn't really dark. That was more of like sad, but with a spark of hope for the future, you know? Like it was really good. So like of the three games, Ethereal Enigma is the best feel good. Now, how do I rate the games? Ace still wins. Ace is still, I think, PixelFade's crowning achievement up to now. And then Leanna, yes, thank you, Danny. I'm so sorry. So, Leanna is the character from Crystalline. So, top game, Ace Academy. Ethereal Enigma, below, and Crystalline, below. But again, Crystalline, great. I loved that game. But the thing was, Ace Academy had gameplay features and story writing that I still think have yet to be topped. The timed choices, I think, were the best thing that ever happened to a visual novel, and I'm super sad that they stepped away from that. I'm guessing because a lot of traditional visual novel fans don't like that, because it makes you, like, you have to be quick on your feet. But how often do you get to sit and pause life and be like, okay, I'm going to think about what I'm going to say here? No, I like the fact that there are some crucial decisions that had to be made on a timer. And I hope that that's something that comes back in the future, because I think that that's very, like, true to form, and it adds an element of, like, to it, you know, like maybe you don't have 100% control your first playthrough, but that's kind of the exciting part, right? So, like, I still think that gameplay-wise, that was the best. I also think Ace Academy's length was just, like, perfect. Ethereal Enigma, length again was good, and I think that the fact that it has proper branching choices, and the choices that you make do feel like they're impactful. You can ruin things, you can have a terrible route, you can find a surprise route. Like, the fact that it has the nuance is very good. Something Crystalline kind of stepped away from, which I thought was a bad move. The dialogue choices ultimately didn't give you many choices until the very end. Like, it was mostly just like, how do you get to the same point? And, like, ultimately, like, you only had one romanceable partner. You either, like, romance her or not. And then at the very end, you either go back to your home or not. Like, it's very, very, like on-off, 1-0 choices. Ethereal Enigma has branching choices, which I like. Danny, you say, I mentioned this already in one of your videos, but yeah, Ace Academy is still my favorite from PixelFade. Absolutely. I think they, again, why I of this 1 step back, 3 steps forward, they're still falling short of what I think was their best and what made their best their best. Imagine if you had the production quality and the writing that we're seeing now from Ethereal Enigma applied to the similar mechanics and choice-based systems that we saw in Ace Academy. Because my gosh, like, I experimented with Ace Academy. Like, choices you made in the first, like, section, like, would be referenced in later parts of, like chapters 4 and 5 with the characters. Like, the way they remembered your first interactions with them that carried into the end of the game was incredible. Like, you just don't see that in a lot of choice-based games. Mostly because it's flipping hard. Like, it's hard to write a story like that. Like, you end up writing a story, like, visual novel writing is really challenging because it's not like you're just writing a book. You're already writing a book, but then you have to write the same book like 4 times and decide where they intersect and where they don't, and then you have to adjust everything based on that. So, because like based on the decisions that the character makes, you have to adjust like some future points of dialogue, and so you end up with, like, instead of like a timeline, you end up with a tree, and like that is so hard to write properly. So the fact that Ace Academy, PixelFade's first release, I really hope they remember that, because they've got something good going here. They've got a success. They've got a following. They've got a fan base. I think now I want to see them push that envelope again. I want them to take things and push visual novels in directions that we haven't seen much before. Like, the best visual novels don't necessarily have, like, the best choices, but the ones that are the most memorable are the ones that made the player experience feel unique. Steins Gate, Muv-Luv. The reason why they're probably some of the best visual novels in the world is not just because they're great stories, but it's because the player felt like they got to be involved in ways that no other story has really been able to capture for me since. I also think House of Fata Morgana is the same thing. Like, my top visual novels, they capture that essence of being able to let the player feel like they're part of the story in a way that's unique to the story. That those visual novels interact with you as a person who is viewing and reading it in a way that is completely different than just being a part of a story. Whether it be like Fata Morgana's hidden dialogue and hidden options, whether it be Steins Gate, where like all major decisions had to be enacted by the player. Like, when you get to a decision point, you know it's a decision, and that you as the player have to make it happen, because if you don't, the universe moves on without you, and you have to accept the consequences. And then Muv-Luv, which plays with the whole idea of the branching narrative, making each of them relevant in a way that just blew my mind when it happened. So, PixelFade started out of the gate strong with their style of choices and the timed choices. They've now stepped back into very much more like common like visual novel styles, and that's okay. But I really, really hope, I said this every time, I want PixelFade to remember and to go back and like learn from their first success, because there were lessons there I think all visual novel creators need to learn. I think Ace Academy is one of those games I would recommend to people who I'm like, I want you to experience a visual novel because I think this is such a memorable experience. I think it's something that's going to be impactful for you. And it's why it's one of my top visual novels. Like, it's funny because it's like, the quality of the writing is not at the same level of stuff like Fata Morgana or Seabed or Muv-Luv. But I put it up there with those because of some of the innovation and just the attention grabbing and how it pulls me in. Like, just what it does for me as an audience member. It just seals that deal. So PixelFade, fantastic game. Ethereal Enigma was a fantastic addition to the series. It seriously is one of the greatest things I think I've ever been able to like enjoy and take a part in. I think I'm always sad to say goodbye to a PixelFade game, and I'm glad they've got a new game coming out. I hope that as they're starting the development process of it, that if anyone from PixelFade happened to watch this video, I hope that you look back at what made your makes all your games the greatest. Like, look at the things that you've done right here. Like, Ethereal Enigma has shown that you've grown a lot as creators when it comes to character development. Your engine is a lot better now. The interactive kind of like live motion CGI effects with the sprites are a lot better than they were in Crystalline, which I had like I had some horrific glitches in that one. But your engine's a lot more improved now. Your grasp of like writing and character development has improved a lot. And now I think if you take that get that one step further, where you pick up like the stuff that made Ace Academy so unique and so well done, and take that extra time, PixelFade could make the next great, the next like hallmark visual novel. You've got what it takes. You're so close. So I hope they do that. I hope you've enjoyed, like, whether you're watching this live or especially if you're watching this in post. I hope you enjoyed my breakdown of like the game. Just know I loved it. I loved everything about it. I'm happy that it's here. I think that the only question I still have is like, is Erilynn like related to Liana from the other story? Oh, but before I really wrap things up, I forgot there's some Easter eggs. There's Easter eggs that I found in other routes that I really wish I had gone down with you all, because man, they were great. When you do the Erilynn romance, there's a scene where you get some like mech models and you build them, and she joins you in like helping like construct them. Like it came across to me like describing Legos, but I think it's actually more in tune with like actual like mech models that you get in Japan. I just never had one, like ones like the high detail, like micro, like 2-scale models. I've never had one before. I want to get one someday, but like they're putting them together and it's a really cute scene. But the models you're making are the mechs from Ace Academy. Like, they're little micro models of those mechs, which I thought was a really fun shout out to Ace Academy. Because like you even got to see them and it was just really cute. And I recognized the names of them too. Like, it was just cool. It was just really fun. And then even like the team name was a part of it too. Like the team name where like it was if you remember in the thing, they couldn't decide on their name and they ran out of time, and so their team name became like Ace 12374. It's like they're like, well, great, now we're just boring. But then like they made a reference to that, like, I got the authentic mechs from Ace 12374 or whatever the number was. It was just like, oh, that's really cute. It was really fun. So like that was a really cool shout out. And then if you go to the Kendo Club, because I did the Science Club, which honestly was less science and more philosophy. I found out each of the clubs was not at all what they said they would be. Because you go to the Science Club, it's more of a philosophical club. Sorry, a philosophical club. When you go to the it's the one that's like, it's like giving to people and like being supportive, like, oh, the community, it's like the community service club. You go there and it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go and like we're gonna clean things up and we're gonna like make the world a better place. And it's like, no, you're like a vigilante team where you go and like screw people over who are being jerks. Like you become like an anti-bullying squad, which is like ridiculous. Like, especially the antics, it very much reminded me of just like some of the crazy stuff that happens in like in a lot of anime shows. It was just really fun. A lot of hijinks there, so that was fun. But the really fun one was the Kendo Club, because freaking so many references. Everyone in the Kendo Club are characters from Ace Academy. Like, a lot of them are people who were like the leader of the club is like one of the main guys in the rival team from Ace Academy. His love interest in the group is like the teacher from Ace Academy, and like you actually meet Sho. Like, Sho bursts in and is a member of the Kendo Club with you. Like, Sho from the first game. Like, he even like drops like specific references about like wishing that there was a giant robot piloting club, but since that doesn't exist because it couldn't possibly exist, I'll be in the Kendo Club. And then he even shows up and talks about having a yandere girlfriend, which is absolutely a reference to Mayu, and it's just like freaking hilarious that he was there. I really wish I'd gone down that route on camera. Like, I was kicking myself because I was like, that would have been so fun to share with you. just like my like fanboying over Ace Academy like cameos in this game. So it was really, really fun. So that's kind of my final note, is like the Easter eggs that were in the game were great. The pop culture references, I also like that they toned those down, because that was one of my big gripes about Ace Academy and even Crystalline, that like the pop culture references were like taken to like the 11th like degree, and it was like, okay, calm down. I don't mind, but it's a little ham-handed here. In this game, they were a lot more like down to earth, so like it was nice that they made that a bit more reasonable. But yeah, Danny, I'm glad that you enjoyed the show cameo. Like, it was really great. I just loved it. It was the exact same guy. It was just so fun to see him again. But yeah, okay. So I guess there's really not much else I want to say to this, because like it was a great experience. I'm happy to do it, but we have to say goodbye to yet another game. So put it in the archive. Go back and watch it again if you want to sometime. Hopefully you've enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this whole series. And before I go, I'm going to announce what we're going to be covering next, because we have a bit of something special that's going to be coming on here. I'm going to be kind of jumping into a file real quick. And don't look at any of my stuff. It's actually okay, because I have a bit of a reveal. So we have the art for the next title already. We will be going on an adventure into the prelude sub-sequel, the prequel sequel of the House of Fata Morgana. House of Fata Morgana, Requiem of Innocence is going to be the next thing that we cover on the channel on our Wednesday slot. Hopefully that gets some of you excited. If not, I highly recommend you read or watch the playthrough of the House of Fata Morgana. One of the greatest visual novels I've ever come across. One of the best examples of storytelling. And I'm going to be jumping back into it because the sequel prequel is a long time coming. And this is a custom art that I was able to make with somebody I was able to communicate with, and this is going to be like the header of it. And it's just, I'm excited. It's a great artwork, and it's a great story, and I'm just super stoked. So I hope that you guys have a great day. I hope you have such a wonderful time enjoying this series, and looking forward to series in the coming future. So thank you guys so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. As always, it's a pleasure having you here. And so until the next video watching me, ever see me in next. I'll see you there. Have a good night, guys. Or day, I guess, because it's still daytime for me. I don't know. Whatever. Have a good day.